Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this 30-minute webinar on doing what you don't feel like doing. Now, let's admit it, at times, all of us procrastinate, and at times, it really doesn't matter. You know, we put off small things. It's immaterial. And at other times, all of us are procrastinating on more significant things in our life. We are deferring a better future. So today I'm going to share a number of ways that we could all use, myself included, to get better at doing what's important, but what's a little bit challenging. Now, in the original ad for this presentation, I said there were going to be three strategies. I upgraded that after a while. I thought, three, is that enough? That might not be sufficiently appealing. So I upped it to 13. We had 13 people. 13 strategies. And then I thought, no, you know what? I need a round number. So it's 15. So today you're going to get 15 strategies for helping you to do what matters, what's important, but perhaps you've been putting off a little bit. That's the plan. So, and most of you I already know, but just to say briefly, I'm Eric Winters. I'm a self-leadership coach. So I help people to manage their minds to be more effective in the workplace, to do more of what's personally important, but challenging. And I do this through talks, at conferences and workplace events, also through training programs and through one-to-one coaching. Earlier this year, I published my first book, Swipe Right on Your Best Self. That graphic makes it look quite chunky. It's not a chunky book. Look, it's a little book. It's deliberately a little book. I wanted to make it accessible. And most of you in this call, I know, have already bought a copy. And thank you very much for your reviews, which are on Amazon. Today, we are going to be talking a little bit about what's in this book, but mostly a whole lot of other stuff. So, can we admit that at times, all of us have things that we need to do, but we just don't feel like doing it. We just don't have the energy. We can't be bothered. Maybe we felt bothered yesterday when we decided that we were going to do it today, but when we actually come around to it, there is a reluctance. All of us at times experience a reluctance, and it's a natural human reluctance. So could I ask people to, maybe we can just go and open up the chat box here for a moment. Here we go. And in the chat box, what are the sorts of things that you've either noticed in other people? And I know a number of you here today are coaches and you help people overcome a reluctance. What are the kind of things that other people are experiencing reluctance to do? And maybe yourself. But if you could just say the sorts of things, business, oh, Ellie, yes, me too, business admin, oh, hate it. But it's kind of important, hey? Like the business development, bookkeeping, Michelle, oh, yes. Admin seems to be strangely universally unpopular. Oh, social media, yes. Tax, Penelope, yeah. Oh, a lot of admin here. Difficult conversations, Ellen. Absolutely. All of us defer important conversations we need to have with people, perhaps sometimes around giving people bad news, or we need to have conversations about new business opportunities. We need to contact people, offer them things, reach out. Sometimes conversations around asking for help. Awful lot of conversations, cold calling, certainly. But there's all sorts of things that you and I, let's face it, you and I put off. So why? Why? Surely we're rational, logical creatures. We know that there's going to be benefits if we do this. Two things in particular I'd say hold us back. One is fear, of course. It's the influence of fears hold us back. Humans are fabulous at catastrophizing and predicting the worst. And two, the other thing is inflexibility. We're all creatures of habit. We have habitual ways of thinking and habitual ways of doing. Getting out of those ruts and changing isn't easy. It's not easy at all, but it can be easier. So today I'm going to share 15 strategies that you can use to help yourself do a little bit more of what you've perhaps been procrastinating or not doing as regularly as you would like. So what I'd like you to do right now, you don't need to tell me, this is just quiet in your head. I'd like you to think of one particular thing that you'd like to get better at. What's one activity that you've perhaps been deferring and that you would like to do more often, or perhaps with greater frequency, or just start? I'd like everyone to think of one thing. Then we're going to go through and talk about these 15 things, 15 potential strategies. And I'm going to want you to pick the one strategy that you hear today that you think, if you were to apply, would make the biggest difference to the challenge you've chosen. Okay? So I'd like you to be vigilant throughout this talk. Which one of these 15 will you use? Now, you will get a copy of the slides afterwards. There will be a copy of the recording, but I'm a big believer in writing things down. Look, it just helps embed it, doesn't it, if we use a different part of the brain. So write these things down as we go through. Are you ready? I'm going to assume that's a yes. Let's go. So I'm going to suggest that there are three broad strategies to helping ourselves to do what we've been putting off, what we're reluctant to do. Number one, simple willpower. It's important willpower. It shouldn't be underestimated. And there are ways that we can help ourselves to develop willpower and make greater use of the willpower we've got. So that's number one, doing things that we don't want to do. We're unwilling, but making ourselves do it. Willpower. Second category, habits. Rather than consciously thinking about it, oh, I've got to do my admin, I've got to do my cold calling, I've got to do my exercise, I've got to eat well. I've got to eat well. Instead of doing that, we can get into a habit. When we can embed a habit, then the conscious mind is put to one side, and it's just who we are. It's just what we do. Really useful strategy. Number three, courage. We can choose to do the thing because it's worthwhile. We might not like it, but we can develop our capacity to choose to do what's challenging but meaningful. And we'll talk more about that. So, okay, let's launch in with willpower. Number one, start your day deliberately. Now, US Navy Admiral William McRaven said, if you want to change the world, start by making your bed. Perhaps you've seen his video. Start by making your bed. Now, this is, I mean, it's funny, but there's an awful lot of truth in it. The way we begin a day sets the tone for the rest of the day. How we start matters. So right at the beginning of the day, find something you can do intentionally, deliberately. Making the bed is a good example. I'm assuming you do sleep in a bed. It's quite a popular option rather than a basket. And but you could always make your basket if that's your preference. Some people, and this is look, it's not going to appeal to many of you, but some people choose to intentionally have a cold shower at the start of the day. Look, do something that works for you, but one, start your day deliberately. And that ability to act with intention will spill throughout the day to a greater extent. Number two, do difficult early. And what do I mean? Willpower is a finite amount of energy. We've got these batteries, willpower batteries. They don't last an entire day. So if there's something that's particularly challenging, better to tackle it with your limited and finite willpower reserves early. Bring it forward. So do difficult early. And oh, Craig, you're mentioning that doing exercise intentionally, deliberately works well for you. Great. Good for you. Me too, Craig. Okay, number 3 for willpower. Remember we talked about that the human mind being fearful. It's naturally fearful. Well, let's use that characteristic of the mind. It's going to be fearful. Well, let's turn our attention to the costs of inaction. Now, I did a 3-day workshop with Tony Robbins about 13 years ago, just before I began my career in coaching. And Tony has a very skillful approach to getting people to really consider what will the price of procrastination be. So if you carry on, let's say, drinking the way you are, what impact will that have on you in 6 months? He'd say 6 months. Feel that 6 months carrying on the way you are. What if it was a year? What if it was 5 years? You carried on with no change for 5 years. And he'd say 10 years. So he really dialed it up. And what we want to do is have the experience of reluctance to bear the cost. So being willing to turn towards the cost of carrying on is another strategy for dialing up your willpower. Number 4, tell someone. Now, coaches already know the power of this. When we vocalize and articulate what we're going to do to another person, there is a sense often of a small sense of obligation to follow through. It's a sort of a voluntary coercion we're tapping into, and it's strangely powerful. Now, for a long time, I thought, well, actually, you know what? This isn't going to work for me because I don't really care what somebody else knows that I don't follow through or not. But what I hadn't predicted is that when we articulate to another person what we're going to do, we're also making a commitment and we're becoming accountable to ourselves. We're expressing it and we hear our own words. So I actually feel an enhanced sense of accountability to myself when I tell someone what I'm going to do. I have 2 coaches because it's that helpful. So you could just tell a friend, tell a colleague something you're going to be doing, or you could get a coach. Really recommended if you don't already have one. Someone who's trained to listen and to help to guide you through the process of doing what matters to you. And Michelle, you've got accountability buddies in the USA. Fabulous. It is reporting in. It helps, doesn't it? It works. 30 planks. Tell me more later, Michelle. Okay, that's number 3 for willpower. Number 4. I wonder if you've read Mel Robbins's book, The 5-Second Rule. I'd like to say, don't buy it, okay? Don't buy it. But there is one idea in this book. So many books have one idea and an awful lot of padding. She's got one idea in this book and a lot of screenshots. But the idea is that way back, she saw I think it was the Challenger launching, one of the space shuttles launching, and they count down and launch. And she thought, maybe I can apply that to my own life. So she discovered that when she felt reluctant about doing something, she knew she had to do it. Oh God, I've got to make that phone call. Oh, I don't want to do it. What she'd do is think, okay, let's imagine I'm like a rocket, and she'd count down in the same voice that those presenters have. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then she would launch. Saying those words helped her to actually take action. Try it. I've used it. My coaches have used it. Sometimes it's strangely helpful in helping us to get over the hump. So those are 5 quick tips for helping us to boost our willpower. Of course, there are more. We can't pack them all in to a 30-minute presentation, but that's just 5 to get going. Let's move on to habits. Okay, just before we talk about this number 1 in habits, there are 2 very worthwhile books on the subject of habits. Atomic Habits by James Clear, and of course, B.J. Fogg's Tiny Habits. I recommend them both. They've both got far too much information. They could have put all of their content into one chapter. That's just what most book authors do, pad it out. Anyway, talking about habits, the first thing I'd like to say is that you can create a one-time habit. Now, often we think of habits as something we do on an ongoing basis, regularly, automatically, habitually, but repetitively. But you can also create an automatic response to do something once. And we can do this with the power of imagination. And what we do here is to actually imagine we've got this one thing we want to do, and we just allow ourselves as vividly as possible to imagine the time comes when we're going to do this thing, and we just imagine we're looking out of our own eyes and we're seeing what we would see if we did that habit. We're hearing what we would hear, and we're just rehearsing doing the action and then enjoying the sense of satisfaction afterwards. It's rehearsal. However, this is often overlooked. I had a coach who procrastinated on a lifetime important goal for 3 years, okay? 3 years. It was really important. She knew it was important. She knew how to do it. She just kept putting it off, putting it off. We had a single session in which she just spent, I think it was 20 seconds, no more than that, 20 seconds, where she allowed herself to imagine the doing of this thing. It doesn't matter what it was. It was just, she imagined, what would it be like? What would I see? How would I stand? What would the experience be? She then did that action within a week. Absolutely extraordinary. So don't underestimate the power of imagination. Habits number 1. Number 2, if you're going to have a habit, an ongoing habit, it needs to be tethered to a cue or a prompt or a trigger. Something needs to start. You need some trigger to start the action. Now, the first thing to say is don't imagine that you're going to remember to do this action. We are awful. Our brains are not good at remembering to do things. We want to outsource the remembering. Put it in a calendar, perhaps, schedule it in, have an appointment with yourself to do something, or, and this is what's recommended by both James and by BJ Fogg, and that is to tether your behavior that you'd like to do to something you're already doing in the day. Now, you're already, in fact, most of your day, I'm willing to predict, much like mine, is quite predictable. There is a regularity, there's a pattern to our day. We're all getting up. You're maybe having breakfast, or perhaps you're having a coffee. From time to time during the day, you might be going to the loo. You may be washing your hands. You may be having lunch. You'll be doing things during the day repetitively. It's a good idea to tie or tether your habit to one of those actions. So when that action completes, you have an agreement with yourself, that's when I do X. And so tethering your actions to a cue. Necessary. Don't try to remember to do your habit. Number 3, celebrate. Now, BJ Fogg in Tiny Habits says this is the most overlooked and most powerful way to embed a new habit. He says there's a lot of nonsense about repetition. I'm sure you've read that, or it takes 4 weeks to develop a new habit, or it takes 6 weeks, or whatever. He says that's old thinking. We don't think that anymore. So he's a behavioral scientist, and his research says, no, that's not so important, not as important as celebrating after you have done the action. So let's say, Michelle was mentioning earlier, she's doing this wonderful plank challenge. Michelle, right after you've done your planks, celebrate wildly and unreasonably. Go overboard. Yes, you've done it. Use your own language, but that's me. I've done it. Success. We need to allow ourselves to conjure up the experience of success. Now, BJ Fogg calls it shine. It's that feeling you have when something's gone really well, inordinately well, and we want to allow ourselves to experience shine, the embodiment of success, after completing our habits. That's what locks it in. It's the feeling the emotional feeling of success that enables neuroplasticity to happen. Feelings matter. Number 4, and I'm aware that we're kind of rushing through this, but we've only got half an hour. I wouldn't normally speak this fast in one of my talks at conferences. Okay, but number 4, how can we help embed a habit? Begin small. The reason BJ Fogg's book is called Tiny Habits is because he says to embed a habit, the best thing to do is to begin really small. So here's an example. I noticed that I was not reading. My reading habit had sort of slipped this year. I used to read a lot. I stopped. To get back into the habit, I committed to reading 1 page a night. That's all. That's all. And for the first few nights, I did only read 1 page. But then I found myself feeling like reading. I didn't have to consciously choose as much. So when we start habits small, they can take root, and then we can expand them. So make the action you want to do as easy as possible. One way is to make it very small. The other thing is just to have everything ready. Have everything ready. Want to eat well? Get that food you need in advance. Maybe have it already cooked. You just need to warm it. Want to go running? Have your shoes that you like to wear by the door, wherever you want to put them. Make it easy for yourself. That's number 4. Number 5, when you've finished your activity, your habit, we want to say to ourselves something along the lines of, that's like me. What we're trying to do here is to embed an identity of, look, I'm the kind of person that does planks. That's just the kind of person I am. I am the kind of person that does my business admin every Friday at 9 o'clock, between 9 and 10. That's just what I do. So we can help to embed an identity by using expressions like, that's like me. That's the kind of person I am. Or even if that doesn't fit for you, look, that's the kind of person I'm becoming. This strategy is described in my book. And those of you who have read it will recall the Olympic athlete who became a world champion many times over by saying, that's like me, after every experience of success. That's like me. That's habits. Let's move on now to courage. Courage. Courage is where we are choosing to do something because it matters to us. First question to ask is, who do you choose to be? In a world of conformity, if you could embody any qualities you wanted to in this one precious life, which qualities would you choose to embody? Now, a lot of exercises to help people to do this. What I do with my clients is we use a set of cards. It's one of the exercises. I call them Being My Best cards. And this is a list of 58 separate qualities to consider. And at times, I look through these cards to decide how I'm going to be for the particular task in front of me. Which quality would I really like to embody? I've got ambitious here, being helpful, being playful. They're all being words. Being engaging, being healthy, being dependable, being cooperative. Having a set of words ready to consider assists us to select. But one way or another, we do need to spend some time. It's great to do this with a coach, identifying, okay, if I could be anyone in this one life, who would I choose to be? And knowing that, maybe keeping these words close to us so that we can use them to guide, use them as compasses really, to guide our behavior. Number 2, encourage. Do it for love. A lot of the time we think about doing things for ourselves. Of course. However, when we choose to take an action for love, in other words, to help somebody else, to be of service, to be helpful to another, it releases a hormone in our bloodstream called oxytocin. Oxytocin. Now, this, you may know this as the cuddle hormone. It does give us a sense of closeness, but in addition, it is the courage hormone. When we are doing things to help others, courage is amplified. So if you've got a task to do and you really don't want to do it, ask yourself, well, to what extent might doing this task assist another, potentially? How might it be of useful to other people? Who else may benefit? And if you can find someone, lock in with that and do that action in order to help the other person. Okay, on to number 3. Practice mindfulness. Now, there's an awful lot of talk about mindfulness, but it must be said, those who practice it on an ongoing basis, formally, through sitting perhaps, or informally, just by going through the day, will find that their ability to be calmer, less flustered, more resilient is amplified. They find that they can choose what they're going to do rather than being automatic. So mindfulness, a great tool, a great exercise for building your courage to choose what you're going to do and not just be on autopilot. Number 4, everything has a price. Now, you're honest people. When you go shopping, I imagine you don't put things in your bag without paying. You pay for them. You make a decision. Okay, you're asking for so many dollars, for so many eggs, what have you. You make a decision, yes or no. Either you put it back or you agree to pay the price. Everything that's worthwhile in life is going to be challenging to some degree. I invite you to figure out, what's the price going to be? What's it going to ask of you in terms of time? What kind of difficult feelings are you willing to experience in order to achieve that goal? So we figure out the price and pay it. So this approach is about acknowledging and accepting, actually, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to feel awkward. I'm going to feel embarrassed. I'm going to feel tired. I'm going to feel anxious, and doing it anyway. Now, before we go on to number 5, a quick word from our sponsor, me. The book, Swipe Right on Your Best Self, is now also a course. I'm launching it in February. It's a 4-session course. It'll be for 90 minutes on Mondays, and you can see the dates up there, from midday to 1:30. This course is going to be predominantly based on developing courage. We're all going to choose a meaningful goal, something that's really important, a worthwhile challenge, something you really care about, and something that you are unwilling to postpone any more in your life. And then we're going to develop the courage to take action. Rather than just having 4 sessions, there are also going to be 2 personal one-to-one coaching sessions. Look, we probably won't be in the same room, but we'll, one way or another, we'll have 2 coaching sessions together to embed the information after the course. Look, I will send you the link for this afterwards, but in the meantime, I think, oh no, you'll get the link to that later on. Okay, so let us go on to courage number 5. What's my 5th tip for courage? And the 5th tip is a 3-step strategy taken from my book. It's, first of all, we notice when we're challenged. We actually feel and notice the experience of being challenged. 2, we name it. We name what we're feeling. We develop a vocabulary for that. We name the emotion or the feeling, and we name the story we're telling ourselves. Name it. And the 3rd step is now what? Now what would the kind of person I choose to be do? Notice, name, now what? It's described in the book, but you'll notice there on the screen, that last character, the Superman character, has got the fear icon on the cape. When we're courageous, we're taking action in the presence of fear. We're not getting rid of the fear. We're just getting a little bit of distance from it. So we're still doing what's in our hearts, what we care about, in the presence of fear, but it's not having as much influence. Those are the skills that the science says we can develop. And the strategy is to notice, name, now what? Okay, so people, we have got 3 high-level strategies, and I've given 5 detailed strategies for each one. If you were to think of your own challenge that you came up with at the beginning, which one of these do you think might make the biggest difference if you were to apply it in your life? And I'd like you just to pop that into the chat before we finish. What do you think? Which one might make the most difference? Is it a willpower challenge? Is it a habits challenge? A habit one? Yeah. Which habit in particular do you think? Which one? Celebration? Yeah, the cost of inaction, Tom. Yeah. Yeah, Ellie, the identity thing, really, it's a really clever way to go about it. Paying the price, yeah. It's something we just have to do. We've got to be willing to pay the price. Number 15, Tracy. Yep, notice, name, now what? Efficient use of keystrokes, Tracy, very wise. And that's why I put them up, of course. That's like me, Penelope. Yes, that is like you. You are effective. And Jody, paying the price. In the queue, Jean. And here 11 and then 7, Ellen. Yeah, who do you choose to be? I like it. I like it. People, we are at the end of this rapid fire presentation. If you would be interested in knowing more about the course, I will send you a link to that February course. If you can't make the February course and you'd still like to get this information and embed it into your life, get in touch with me and we can do coaching. Finally, if you know of anyone who would appreciate having a talk at a conference or a workplace event on the subject of how we can help each other to manage our minds, to do our very best work, to step up and to courageously engage with each other and be more ambitious in the workplace in areas that matter to us, get in touch. And I'd love to help others to develop these skills. People, thank you so much. I see your messages. Thank you. You're very welcome, Michelle. Elizabeth, I do appreciate your ongoing support. Tracy, thank you so much.